I'm Ben with the Ultimate Show. Obviously, we're doing these predictions by ourselves since we couldn't figure out a time to all meet up. So this will be part two of the three-team series. I think Andrew is going to go tomorrow, and it's the 24th today, so we're getting them done just in time for you guys. The first game I'm going to go over is Madison versus San Francisco. Now, James obviously used lots of stats yesterday, but I don't know. I'm more into the players that are on the teams rather than the stats they produce because obviously all these teams are in different divisions and different divisions are stronger and weaker than each other. So I like to analyze a different way than he does. So let's first take a look at the number 4 seeded San Francisco Flamethrowers. Some main players to know, Cassidy Rasmussen obviously has won the title before. Greg Cohen, a very good player. Marcelo Sanchez and Antoine Davis, very good young players. Lucas Dahlman, he's been their stalwart since they came into the league a few years ago. And Bo Kittredge, obviously several-time MVP in the AUDL, and he's won everywhere he's gone. So they're obviously underdogs. And I mean, they can always make it to the championship with him on the team. They finished 11-4. Obviously, they were the number 1 seed in the Western Division. That was very close, a lot closer than we thought. I had predicted San Francisco to finish first with their acquisition of Bo Kittredge and Cassidy Rasmussen. But plus 64 goal difference, pretty good. But for what they brought in, you might say they underperformed a little bit, but definitely faced some good competition from the LA Aviators and the San Jose Spiders. But 11-4, you think maybe they should have done a little bit better, but you know what? They're in the Final Four, so who am I to judge them? I mean, Minnesota Wind Chill fan didn't make it out of the first round of the playoffs, so obviously there's give or take in some places. Now let's check out Madison's team, some main guys on their team. All right, so some players on the team, Meshnik, Shriwise, Tom Annan, several defensive guys who are also very, very good at offense. Peter Graffey, defensive stalwart, very, very good. And Kevin Pettick-Stantling, obviously a great player. Seen a lot of him on the AUDL top 10s this year, so I'm looking for him to have a pretty big game. As far as these two teams, obviously Madison has a very composed offense and a very, very good zone defense. So it's really hard to not pick them. San Francisco has a great offense. Obviously, they have a lot of weapons. The defense, maybe not as great, but I mean, it's always so tough to say, especially in these games, because obviously Madison losing to the Western champions last year, even though it wasn't San Francisco, but obviously San Francisco added some guys and, that are very reliable in the playoffs. You know, I'm going to give the edge to Madison. I think that defense will propel them to the final. Maybe get past that curse of losing to the Western Conference top team every single year in the playoffs. But that's my pick. Now let's look at the second game, which is the Dallas Roughnecks versus the Toronto Rush. So some main players on the Toronto Rush. Remy Ojo, a very good player. Jonathan Martin, Isaiah Masik Kelly, always wanted to get it done. Jeff Lindquist, Mark Lloyd, and Adrian Yearwood. Seen them several times do some big things throughout the year. So they have some good guys, and they have a few guys who I haven't mentioned that have actually done really well this year. Um, like Jeff Wu, I've seen him do well in that feisty Eastern Division. Um, and speaking of standings, um, Toronto didn't actually do the greatest. They went 12-3, which is obviously really good record, but for what they've been doing with like 13-1 and 12-2 and etc. Maybe they underperformed, but to be fair, DC and Montreal and New York Empire all got better this year, so they gave them a run for their money. And I really don't think Toronto got any better than they were last year. So now let's take a look at the Dallas team and some guys. Obviously, they have some very good players. They went undefeated last year and won the championship. But this year was a different year. They weren't the 1 seed in the South, and they lost to Jacksonville and Raleigh a couple times, but still made it out of the South to get to this point. So Dallas, Jay Frood, Kirk Gibson, Dylan Freechild, Jimmy Mickle, Kai Marshall, actually have some very, very good guys. And obviously they have a few other guys who are very underrated. Dallas obviously weren't as good as last year, although they do have some momentum, not being the favorite. As far as the standings go, they're 13-3 right now. So basically the two teams fighting have pretty much the same record. Dallas just had to go through an extra game. As far as how they play, Toronto is kind of consistently good at both offense and defense, just wear you out. Not spectacular on either side, but they do just enough to beat you. And very good game plan to be able to do it, and they execute every single time. But they can be beaten, and we've seen that in years past from them, especially in the playoffs. But this year, obviously playing in Montreal, so I mean they've played on this field before, and it's pretty close to home. They're going to have some supporters there for sure. So we'll see how that does for them. As far as the two teams match up, Dallas definitely has the better offense. Obviously, all that firepower. Even though they lost Bo Kittredge and Cassidy Rasmussen this year, they still looked very good on the offensive side. And defense, they looked pretty dang good too. Obviously, they're known for their offense a lot more, but their defense is definitely underrated. And I think Andrew said this a couple times, but they borrow their defensive scheme, which is more of a zone defense, from Madison. And obviously, Jay Frood actually used to play for Madison, and now he's in Dallas. And like I said about Toronto, they do just enough to get past people. Even though some of their games are blowouts, they're usually pretty close until the fourth quarter, no matter who they're playing, except for maybe Philly. But, I think I'm going to have to give the edge to the Dallas Roughnecks here. I just think they're a little too good on the offensive side for Toronto to keep up. But now moving on to the championship, that puts Madison versus the Dallas Roughnecks. And obviously, both of these teams have a very good offense and a pretty good defense. Madison more known for their offense. Madison more known for their defense. Dallas more known for their offense. But both teams are incredible. I'm really looking forward to this as a possible matchup. Mainly because I believe these teams played in the season as part of the Cross Coast Challenge. I'm going to look up the score to that and let you guys know. Okay, so I'm back. Dallas actually beat Madison 23-17 in the Cross Coast Challenge. I believe that was actually held in Madison, and that's pretty insane considering the crowd that Madison has. So when comparing these two teams, obviously that's a great way to show how teams have played against each other, and we actually have an example of these two teams playing each other in the past. And Madison obviously isn't very clutch. I mean, yeah, they made some great comebacks in the season, but as far as playoffs go, they do not have a very good record, especially in the Final Four. So I think I'm going to have to go with Dallas to win on this one. As much as I don't want to, I think the Dallas Roughnecks are going to be the champion of the 2017 AUDL. Um, yeah, championship weekend. I hope it's a great event, and I hope everybody enjoys it. And we'll see you probably when it's over. Maybe 2 weeks after, we'll put out a championship weekend recap and maybe give out some fake awards, like an award show, like we did last year. So if you're looking forward to that, let us know, and we'll see you next time.